Weight loss is not determined by luck, your age, your hormones, your genetics. Anyone can learn to lose fat. And I'm not talking you losing 5 pounds. I'm talking you losing life changing weight, 30 plus pounds. After losing 70 pounds myself, I made this one simple change to how I approach weight loss that's going to drastically change how you lose weight. So I'm going to tell you what it is, why it is so important, and how you can start using it literally today because it is simple and anyone can do it. But first, you need to understand the art of teaching stay. So I want you to think about it like this. Have you ever seen those service dogs and you sit there and you're like, why is that dog? They're such a good dog. That's such a good boy. And you almost like don't even conceptualize this, but they're all different breeds. Like a lot of people think, oh, that dog's just good because they're a smart breed. And I say this because I have a German Shepherd. She's a smart breed. But you sit there and you think, oh, that dog is just good because they are X, Y, and Z. But they all started somewhere. And you could teach any single dog how to be a service dog, any single dog how to be in a position where they are almost an expert at it. So this is how people do it. First, you would start by teaching your dog how to sit. Now, when you teach your dog how to sit, you don't just go outside and you go around a bunch of dogs and have them sit. This is exactly what you would do. You would start off by having them sit with no distractions, okay? So this would be in an area where you're inside, you're in your kitchen area, there's no one home, it is just you. And you're having them sit. When they do it, you give them a treat. And then what you would start to do is you would start to increase the difficulty of this. So this could look like you having them sit where maybe you're further away. You took a big step back and you're not as close to them in their face, have them sit. Or you trying to get them to do it quicker. So once they like try to do it quicker, then you give them that treat quick. So you're increasing the difficulty of this. Or you could even play around with other commands if you really wanted to. Then the next thing that you would move on to is you would start to add, and I'm just gonna put dis here, but you would start to add distractions. You would start to have them sit maybe while your partner is walking behind you or while there is someone else home. Or you would start to maybe increase this difficulty by adding more noise around. Maybe you play music on your phone. This is how you would increase the difficulty of sit. You could even go outside and do this and increase difficulty that way where nobody's around. And then you slowly start to add more and more distractions. So that's how they would learn sit. Next, you would move on to teaching them stay because it's a lot easier to teach them to stay once you've taught them how to sit. And you would repeat this process. You would have them be in your house with no distractions. So you would be in an area where you're in your controlled environment at home, you're in your kitchen, you're at home chilling, and you would make sure there's nothing on, and the only thing that they focus on is just you. And then you would start to increase the difficulty of this. So we would do this all the time with my dog. Her name is Halo. I'll pop up a picture here. But we would do this all the time with our dog Halo is I would now start to throw things. And I would try to make this even tougher for her. I would start to throw things so then she was solely just focused on me. Or her release word is okay. We say that word that's when she can get out of stay. So I would start to increase the difficulty of this by saying different release words. I'd be like poke or loke. And she would almost like do that little flinch thing where she's about to go, but then she doesn't. And then obviously you wouldn't reward her if she were to move when she didn't listen to your command. Then we would start to now add distractions. So if she's staying, I might have my fiance in another room say a word or try to talk to her, try to add more distractions. Then, if you wanted to teach your dog in the hardest environment possible to sit outside where all the dogs are around and you're like, how is a dog in such control? And you sit there and like, why is my dog not that way? So you would teach your dog how to stay, but you would teach them how to stay outside, okay? And you would repeat this process. Same thing. you would make sure there are less distractions. Like there's always going to be some distractions because by going outside, you're just like the goal is to add distractions. But you go in an area where there's no other dogs. You go in an area where there's no people at all. And then what you would do is you would move on and you would increase the difficulty. So you would be outside. And like I said, you may be having some people slowly be in the background. You might add a distraction of maybe it's a little windy out or it's a little louder out. Or you're starting to be in an area where it's a little less controlled. Or you could do a lot of the same things you did on inside, where you start throwing in different words to try to throw them off. Or you try backing up your distance, like you go further away, or you hold the stay longer. And then you would start to fully start adding distractions. Now, you're not just adding distractions completely, like a ton of them. But like I said, you might have a dog in the distance, and then the dog gets closer. And now you're adding all these kinds of distractions. And over time, the dog becomes an expert at this. But what if we skipped a step here? And what if we just decided, I'm not even going to teach my dog how to sit and all these things. I'm just going to go straight to teaching them how to stay with distractions, which is that's what a lot of people do. They start teaching their dog how to stay at a very high difficulty. And this is where you're now setting your dog up for failure, because your dog is going to start being demotivated from this. Like dogs get frustrated too. Watch this. Try to teach them something really, really tough, and they never get a reward from it. So they just start to lose interest and they don't want to do it anymore. But you do this with your weight loss without probably even realizing it. So I want you to think about it like this. Think about your steps. A lot of times what people tend to do is they will go all the way over here and they say, I'm going to try to get 10,000 steps every single day when I am losing weight. Or your workouts. You start deciding, I'm going to start working out. I want to get in shape. So what you start to do is you say, I'm going to start getting 5 to 6 workouts every single week. Or your diet. You have your diet, which is a very important piece, obviously, but your diet, you take an approach where you are like, I am going to make sure that I am now meal prepping. I am making sure that I'm going to the grocery store and I'm eating all these healthy foods. So you start taking these approaches. I actually don't even know if I'm spelling healthy right there on camera spelling. But you start going all these approaches. And what you are doing now is you are skipping things in between. And you aren't making things just hard enough. So this is what I want you to do. So for your steps, let's work from your steps first. You're going to take a look at your watch. You're going to look at your health app on your phone. And you're going to see what your average really is. Okay? And a lot of people, maybe this average, let's just throw a number out there. Let's say your average is about 4,000 steps every single day. Like I said, a lot of people will then skip to 10,000 and they can't figure out why they're not losing weight. Here's the reality. You didn't make things just hard enough. So what you should do is you should increase your steps by 2,000. So you shouldn't go straight to 10,000. You're going to do 6,000 steps every single day. Now, this is something achievable. This is just hard enough to where you achieve it. You are now going to get some motivation from this. Think about the dog, right? If you give them a task and you make the sit where they're able to, in a position where you can reward them, they still have motivation from this and they want to keep going. Now, think about this for your workouts. If you are someone who is working out not at all, okay, then going 5 to 6 is not going to probably work for you because it's something that is already built into your life. But let's say you do once a week already. So let's say you're currently at once a week, and let's say you do a 45-minute workout. If I go straight to 5 to 6 times a week for an hour long, this is not going to work. What you can do is you could do 2 times a week for your workouts. And maybe those workouts, because this one's 45 minutes, so maybe you keep 45 minutes the same. So you do 2 times workouts a week. Why? Because it's just hard enough to start increasing this. And if you're actually trying to figure out what you should be doing for workouts anyways, it should be full body strength training workouts. I talk about this in several other of my YouTube videos as well. Then if you wanted to increase its difficulty more, you could maybe do 2 workouts of 60 minutes. Or you could bump it up to 3 workouts of 60 minutes. You make this just hard enough to where you get to the reward and feel motivated from this. Or your diet. You have this big goal where you're like, I'm going to start meal prepping. I'm going to start eating healthy. But you're not giving yourself a tangible place to start and slowly build off of. So what you would do is you could go and use any sort of calorie calculator. If you want, I have a free calorie calculator. I'll link in the description below. You can use mine if you want. That's going to give you a starting point. So let's say your number it gives you is, let's just say 1,800 calories. You would start at 1,800 and then you would start figuring out how to eat within that number. And then over time, you would get really good at maybe you're eating 1,800 calories. But now you're starting to meal prep and you're starting to focus on getting better foods into your diet. You're trying to slowly make changes that are just hard enough that over time you start getting better at losing weight. Because if you were to just try to do all of this first, you're going to get lost, you're going to get confused. But if you have a number that hit every single day, and then now you start figuring out, like, okay, I'm consistently hitting this number. Now you start figuring out, okay, how do I get more protein? So now you start being like, I'm going to add protein to my breakfast. You're not just adding a ton all at once. You start slowly figuring out how it fits in your life. And this is where a ton of people go wrong, is they don't make things just hard enough. They make the bar so high that they cannot jump over it. Or maybe they do once or twice during the week, but then they keep failing over and over and over again. And eventually they get discouraged from this and they just quit entirely. You want to make that bar just high enough that you can jump over it most of the time, 80 to 90% of the time, or even more than that. But you don't want to make it too easy that you don't get rewarded from that. If something is way too easy, you're not going to want to continue to do it. So you want to make it just challenging enough. I think about this like my salsa dance lessons right now. The very first class that I went to, I was a complete beginner, and a lot of people there had some sort of background. I had none, okay? And the very first class, I even kind of walked away with a little bit discouraged because we moved really fast because there was a lot of people in there that knew what they were doing. Then the second class, I got so much more motivation, so much more encouragement from it because I practiced at home. And then I went there and there was just enough information that was digestible to me that had some stuff to work on, but I didn't fail over and over and over again. If I continue to fail, I would not want to go back to the class. And like I said, this is the biggest problem that you need to start doing is figure out how to make things just hard enough. And if you don't know where to start, you're unsure, I have an entirely free 7-day plan in the link in the description. It's going to take you from off track to on track with your weight loss. I'm giving you actionable things to do every single day over the next 7 days. And this is an area where you can start to make things just hard enough that over time, it's going to be something that you're able to hold off forever. And if you want to know how to lose weight forever, then I'd recommend that you watch this next video here where I teach you how to lose it for good.